Wight Fire and Rescue Authority. This meeting is being held at our Fire Police Shared Headquarters at Eastleigh and is being recorded and broadcast on the authority's website and will be available for repeated viewing. Press and members of the public are also permitted to film and broadcast this meeting. Those remaining at the meeting are consenting to being filmed and recorded and to the possible use of those images and recordings for broadcasting purposes. There is no scheduled fire alarm today. If the fire alarm does go off, out that door, turn left into the car park and follow someone in uniform. You know how the microphones work. Do turn it off if you're not using it. So, item 1, apologies for absence. Adam, please.
We've had apologies from Councillor Price and Councillor Carpenter, and the PCC, Donna Jones, has let us know that she's not able to make it today.
And George.
And Councillor Madrick as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, declaration of interests. Any? No. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting on 29th of August. Does anyone have any comments on the accuracy or relevance of that agenda? No? I can sign it? Good. Thank you. Item 4, deputations. Have we got any? No. Item 5, then, Chairman's announcements. As Chairman, both personally and on behalf of all the Fire Authority members, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Sabrina Cohen-Hatton, who is our new Chief Fire Officer. Welcome. Welcome. Who has formally taken over from the 15th of September following a period of handover from Neil Odin. Very good to see you, Sabrina.
Thank you, Chairman.
Welcome. Now, a Silver Award for Armed Forces Employee Recognition Scheme. On the 3rd of September, Deputy Chief Fire Officer Shantha Dickinson and Crew Manager Luke Holcroft attended the South East Reserve Forces and Cadet Association event at Admiralty House in Old Portsmouth to receive an award on behalf of the service. They received the Silver Award for the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme. This award demonstrates the service's commitment to employees who are military veterans and reservists. We aspire in future years to work towards the Gold Award. Our staff, who are reservists and veterans, have a wide-ranging skill set and unique perspective that can contribute towards a fire and rescue service more reflective on the community it serves. Shantha, anything you'd like to add to that?
Just that we're very proud of that, and it's an ongoing journey. And I think particularly not just in terms of recognising the veterans and reservists within the organisation, but of course all of the military heritage and connectivity we've got across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. So really supporting our communities who have that representation too. Good,
excellent. And I know Luke Holcroft. He's an ex-Navy submariner. He's a crew manager at Winchester, is he, at the moment? He is also standard bearer for the Bramley Royal British Legion, of which I'm chairman, so I see him quite a lot, and he's a good egg. Good man, he is. Isn't he? Isn't he? Good. Now, next item. The letter to the Fire Minister. Following the Fire Authority meeting on the 29th of August, where members considered the operational changes consultation report, a letter has since been sent to the Minister responsible for fire and rescue. That letter highlights the significant financial challenges our fire and rescue service are facing. We are calling on the government to act now before future decisions become untenable in terms of balancing risk and resources. We need adequate resources to ensure we can keep our communities and our firefighters safe. And incidentally, I have spoken to certainly my Labour colleagues on the County Council, and they have spoken to the Labour MPs in Hampshire, and they have, I think, all written to the government as well. So, you know, we're just trying to keep a head of steam going, because something's got to happen, and as Celine Dion sang, this is getting serious. Chief, want to say anything?
Thank you, yeah. And I think it's a really helpful letter that was drafted and sent to the Fire Minister. And I think there's a reality for fire and rescue services, ourselves included, in terms of the financial situation and the rising risk that we have. So if you take Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, our population's grown since 2011 by about 161,000 people. And in terms of that population, those greatest at risk of fire have also increased. If we take those aged 65 and over, they've increased from around 338,000 in 2011 to around 435,000 in 2024. And if you look at groups including those with disabilities, they increased from around 310,000 in 2011 to around 343,000 in 2021. We also know that over the past decade, the number of incidents that we've responded to as Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service has increased by 29%. So we're going to more incidents. Those at-risk groups that we need to work closely with around our prevention work is growing. And because of the funding, the number of firefighters that we have nationally has reduced by about 11,000. And here in Hampshire, we've had about a 19% reduction in the total number of firefighters. And our other corporate staff that provide vital supporting roles to enable us to do the operational work that we do has also reduced. We also know that we're going to have further pressures in the future, not least the pressure from climate change, changing the nature and the number of incidents that we go to. We've got increased regulatory pressures as a result of recommendations from the Grenfell Tower inquiry, and we're facing challenges both locally and nationally in terms of recruitment and retention of our on-call firefighters. Capital investment is crucial for us, and we have, I think the capital investment that we have nationally has impacted on our ambitions, and I think locally that's no different. So calling on government and the Fire Minister to support us in considering the funding that we need to meet our risk has been a really important factor. So thank you for drafting that letter.
Pleasure. David.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wondered if I could ask a question. I don't have the letter in front of me, but could you remind me, I'm sure you sent it to us all, but could you remind me what we said about what we've done so far in terms of dealing with the financial challenges, what we've done so far in terms of addressing the risks and how we were adapting this service, and also how much did we ask for financially?
I don't have those on the tip of my tongue. Would you like me to recirculate the letter?
Yes, please. I'm sure I could find it, but if you could do that, that would be brilliant.
We'll send it to you all. Yeah. Einstein said he doesn't store that sort of information. He can look it up in a file. Whoever he was. Right. Okay. Next item 6. Member development. I went to the Basingstoke Open Day at their fire station, which was excellent. It is amazing how fire engines attract people who want to climb all over them. It really was a very good day. Not as hot as last year. Last year, the fault they made was they only had one ice cream van, which was chaotic. But this one, it worked all right. But it was good fun. So if you go to these things, if you have open day at fire stations. Members, anything you'd like to comment on what you've done over the thing, Sally?
So just following on from what you were saying with a letter from yourself to the Minister, I've been working with the 2 Southampton Labour MPs. Even though Satvir Kaur MP is actually on maternity leave, she still managed to get her office to send out a letter, more of a personal letter, and I have asked if I can share that with you because she's part of the executive, so she's like a junior minister, whereas Darren Paffy MP, the Itchen MP, he's a backbencher, so he can fight the fight a little bit more. So he's the one that is trying to get us a meeting face-to-face with the Minister, and Satvir Kaur has sent a personal letter from a different email address that these MPs have internally, so to add a bit more weight to it. So we haven't heard back yet. I was sent the email to check if I was happy with the letter on the 12th of September. It then got signed off by Satvir, and it has been sent off
in a different way so it doesn't pile up on the desk like all the other begging letters from around the country. I'm really hoping Satvir's letter adds a lot more weight to our situation, but I am still pushing for a face-to-face meeting, which I know Darren Paffy MP's team are trying to sort out for us.
Okay. No, thanks. I've actually seen the letter. Well, I've seen one from both the MPs.
Yeah, so this is a different letter added to the one that she'd already sent. So I'll share. She said that I can share that with you.
Great, okay.
Yeah, this is a different one.
Okay, thank you. And also the leader of Portsmouth has written a very long letter to the government as well. So we are building ahead of steam. I just hope it works. Anyone else? Lou.
Thank you. Nothing as amazing as the work you've just done, Sally, getting MPs on board. I did, however, attend the Emergency Services Service on the 9th of September, when we remember people we have lost, which is a joint service between the Fire and Rescue Service and also the Constabulary. And then on the 26th of September, I attended my very first Local Government Association Fire Commission meeting, as I've just been appointed to that body. As you can imagine, the most significant topic of discussion is funding, and particularly the concerns surrounding the new potential funding formula. So I'm sure we will hear more on that subject as it progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. David?
Yes, good morning, Chair. I guess member development also includes training that we've had, and it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge and thank the officers. We had a really very good session on finances delivered by Chief Financial Officer and others. And we've also had some really good training, in some cases refresher training, and other cases for the first time on subjects as involved legal over there, and audit and governance, and even equality and diversity issues, which I found very, very useful indeed. So thank you to all the officers involved in putting together these programmes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any more? Any more? Done anything? There are some events coming up. Certainly, December the 18th seems to be a fully packed day. We've got an authority meeting, and we've got the final firefighters' graduation parade, which I would like very much if you could all attend that, because the Lord Lieutenant is coming, and he is very keen and very helpful in supporting the fire service. So a good showing there would be excellent, please. And there's also some various things going on in Gosport. I've looked at the list. I think at least one of us is attending all those, which is good, because they appreciate it, that we turn up and say thanks to them. Okay. And I wanted to say, oh yes, we're revising the, what are we revising? The members' list of other duties they do.
Yes.
Yeah. We're just revising that, but we'll have a chat about that at the next APAC meeting. I'd be interested to know how much you are actually doing on them. So you've got a month. Now's the time to get it done. Right. There being no more on that one then. So item 7, the Q1 budget update report. If I could ask Rob to give your report, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everybody. So I'm going to give you an update on the financial position as reported at the end of Q1, so the end of June. We're going to talk through the revenue budget position, looking at the current year with a bit of context on the medium-term position and the savings delivery as well. I'll also talk a little bit about the capital programme, the reserves and balance sheet position, and also touch on some of the indicators that we're required to report on. So I think it's helpful if we start by just looking back to the February 2025 budget setting process. So at that time, we'd identified that there was a budget gap for the current financial year of about £3.5 million. Legally, we're required to set a balanced budget, and so the way that that was addressed was through agreeing to deliver £1.7 million of in-year savings and through a draw of £1.8 million from the budget equalisation reserve. So we're monitoring against that budget that was agreed back in February. On the savings side, I'll talk about this a bit later on, but you received the report in August on the operational changes, and I'll provide a bit of a wider update on savings more generally. But the headline position at the end of Q1 suggests, instead of having to draw that full £1.8 million from the budget equalisation reserve, the figure is more in the region of £700,000 as a draw. So still in a position where, to make the finances balance this year, we need to take money out of reserves on a one-off basis, but a better position than when we were setting the budget back in February. And so this is shown in the table at paragraph 11. So there are a number of reasons for that improvement in the position, but the most significant one that I'll highlight and talk through a little bit is to do with an underspend forecast against the non-operational staff budget. So one of the strands of the savings and efficiency programme is to do with organisational redesign. So what that's doing is looking at the structure of the service, and that has the potential then to release savings on a permanent ongoing basis. What it's also doing in the short term is meaning that it makes sense to hold a number of vacancies while we go through that process of redesign. And so that has been generating a forecast underspend in the current financial year, which at the end of Q1 was looking at being about £1 million. So that comprises most of the forecast underspend. There are then a number of other ups and downs. So we've got the benefit of the Airwave contract savings this year, which weren't known at the point that we set the budget, and then a number of other ups and downs across other budget headings. So the underspend that's forecast against the Green Book staff, where we're holding some of those vacancies, that obviously does have an impact on deliverables because you've got fewer people while you hold those vacancies, but that's being managed by the directors and their teams, and the intention is, once the structure is obviously finalised, if there are vacancies remaining at that point, then the intention would be to recruit to those. So the revenue budget section of the report also talks about the HMI inspection outcomes at paragraph 14. So there were two causes for concern that were identified as part of the inspection report. For one of those, it's been identified that we should put in some additional resource, and that will be used to further strengthen the way in which workforce planning supports the delivery of the safety plan. So the estimated cost of that, to put that action plan in place, is about £195,000. That would be below the threshold requiring approval by the authority for that funding. However, it's being flagged here for your awareness, given the subject matter that relates to. Paragraph 15 then links to the confidential report that you received in August relating to the management of fire risk contaminants. So in that report, it talked about setting aside some resources associated with that. So because we've got the benefit of the delayed spend on the capital programme, which means we haven't borrowed as much money as quickly as we thought we were going to, and also the benefit of having money in the bank, which means that we receive more investment income, particularly as interest rates have remained relatively high. So we've got that one-off benefit, and this report therefore formally recommends allocating that money to the capital payments reserve as an earmark for the work on fire contaminants. Final thing on the revenue budget is just in paragraph 16 to note that the table at the moment doesn't include any of the costs of the mutually agreed resignation scheme or redundancy costs. because we've got some money that was approved from the Transformation Reserve to fund those costs. So just to highlight that. So moving then on to the medium-term position, I haven't got a full update on the MTFP for you at this point because there's too much uncertainty to move that number that we looked at back in February. So there'll be a full update that comes as part of the budget report in February 2026. And by that time, we'll have the information from the local government finance settlement and the outcomes from the fair funding review consultation. And those will have a big impact on our future financial position. It will be good because the finance settlement is due to give us a 3-year settlement instead of the 1-year settlement we've had in previous years. So that's helpful from a planning point of view. However, on the flip side of that, we think that the financial position is likely to be worse as a result of the fair funding review consultation if things are in line with the information that was provided in the consultation. The reason for that is it's to do with the amount of funding that is allocated to the fire sector overall as part of the process, and then the way that the actual formula then works. So what has been proposed is that there's a relative needs assessment that's done which works out across the sector the different needs based on a number of different factors for the different fire and rescue services. And then that comes up with a number of your relative need. And then taken off of that number is the amount that the government assumes that you can raise in council tax. And therefore, what you're left with is what can be funded through government grant. The potential challenge with that is, as we all know, there's referendum limits in terms of the council tax that the authority is able to raise, and if those two bits of the formula don't quite match up together, and on the one hand it's assumed you'll be able to fill a gap of X with council tax, but on the other hand you're limited in how much council tax you can raise, we might end up with a financial gap. That's what it looked like from the initial information that was provided, but we're obviously waiting for the consultation outcome to see what the impact will actually be. The other bits to highlight within this section of the report are just a reminder that we don't receive any capital funding from government, and that's something that the NFCC has continued to make representations to government with respect to that. There's also an update on the delivery of savings, so we are currently on track to achieve a higher number than was targeted as part of the budget and medium-term financial plan earlier in the year. That's partly to do with the savings on the airwave contract that we were unaware of at the time, and also to do with some additional savings on the organisational design and middle manager review strands of the savings programme. The good thing about delivering more savings from this work is that these savings have all been assessed to be operationally acceptable and to work with for the directors of in the Green Book areas. And so what it means is if we deliver more savings now, that's a bigger amount that we can put towards the forecast budget gap for 26-27, which reduces the chances of having to find additional savings in future years. The other factors that I'd highlight in terms of the medium-term position where there remains uncertainty and that could have an impact on the budget include interest rates. So we've got some borrowing that we need to do for the capital programme. The interest rates can have an impact on the revenue costs of that to do with the interest charges. Inflation, we've had this problem for a number of years of costs increasing faster than our funding. And that creates pressures if that continues. The uncertainties around devolution and what that will mean for the authority and the service, and then other external changes and internal delivery pressures as well. But that will all be factored into an update of the medium-term financial plan in February. Just finally then to talk through the capital programme. So there's an update provided in the report, and I will provide some further details on the changes as part of the confidential session relating to the confidential appendix. Reserves and balances, so reserves continue to be monitored carefully, and a full update will be provided as part of the reserve strategy to the February meeting, but the graph in the report shows, as we have done in previous years, the expectation that balances will fall over the coming years. And that's as we continue to invest in vehicles, the estate, equipment and ICT to support the delivery of the service. So the majority of the reserves, the big block you can see at the top of the graph, relates to planned earmarks for future spend. There are also a number of prudential indicators and treasury indicators that we need to report on, which are covered in the report and one of the appendices. I should highlight that 2 of the prudential indicators are missing from the report. So the forecast for external debt would be £28.7 million, and the financing cost to net revenue stream figure would be 2.3%. I will finish there, but of course very happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Rob. Very concise. Members. David.
Yes, Chairman. The cost implications of carrying out the wishes following the HMI report. I can see today that we're talking about a not insignificant amount, nearly £200,000. And I wonder what our obligation is. Who are the gatekeepers? I think it should be us in deciding to what extent we go along with their wishes. Are we, for example, obligated to do everything that HMI asks us to? When HMI carry out their work, are they blind to the cost implications, or is there a negotiation that happens behind the scenes and we give them the nod that we will go ahead and do as they wish? I just wonder, to what extent we as a board are in control of this process, because it's easy to add things into the budget without us necessarily giving thought or having a say on it.
Good point. Chief?
Sorry, I apologise for my minor coughing fit then. So, HMI will look at the service and they'll make their recommendations based on what they see in the service, and it's down to the service to decide what's a priority there. What I would say is when they make their assessment, it's based on what would be a good fire and rescue service and where they think we might either be demonstrating that or falling short. There are some key things that they've identified, not least in terms of the causes of concern, which are priority areas for us. But of course, when we look at these reports, we also look at, I'm so sorry, I had a massive coughing fit then. and now I have a frog that's stayed in my throat. They will make recommendations to the service, and it's down to us then to decide what we need to do. But of course, we'll look at their recommendations, and we won't just look at what the fix is for those particular recommendations. We'll look at what that says about the service and really try to get under the skin of that. So when we're looking at what a good service looks like, or what we need to do to meet the expectations of a good service, we can look at that in its entirety. For example, yesterday we had a planning day looking at our community risk management plan, our safety plan, and what we need to do to be able to deliver that. And within that, we're thinking about where we meet the objectives that they've set to us, the recommendations that they've set, and how we improve as a service. So it's very much part of normal business and the very fabric of the running of the fire and rescue service, and we really try to look at that holistically in its entirety.
And if I can come back, so I also asked the question whether they carry out their work and make their recommendations blind to the cost implications to the service.
Thank you. And I think in terms of the HMI's work, what they're doing is assessing what the service delivers. And so I think when they make their recommendations, it's what the service needs to do. But I think it's down to us then to assess what the costs are and develop what we think is reasonable in terms of what needs to be done, what's within budget. So it might be that the things that we might need to do, or a service might need to do, might be very difficult to be able to afford. And that might then be picked up in a future inspection as well, because it doesn't detract from the service that we're delivering. So they don't make it into, I guess what I'm trying to say is the cost of it is a service issue, whereas the effectiveness of it and translating that to the public is the HMI issue.
Zoe.
Yeah, if I could just follow on from that. So I met with Molly to go through that as a subsequent from the concerns raised at our last authority meeting, that to look through the whole inspection report, one, to gain clarity, and I know Molly and her team are looking to do that, but also look at those golden themes through that. And I'm assuming, Rob, that this is to note at the moment or to raise, so I'm assuming there will be further details coming to what lies behind the actions of the just short of 200,000. But I think it's worth, for me, noting that it does form around that workforce planning. And when we look at the inspection report, some of the things highlighted regarding the link to the safety plan, for example, or succession planning, and the resilience. And then when we look at the budget, one thing to note is obviously what I would hope to do is some of those actions that we're looking at not only would have a positive impact in the next inspection report and moving towards good, but also to look at where we see the cost variations, for example, in whole time underspend, on-call overspend, and then obviously a large proportion of the underspend with non-operational staff. So I think it's a really important bit of work. And my question is, which I think you've just answered, is we're going to have more detail that will come further around that workforce planning.
Yeah, so I think just to try and help, so we've looked at some of the work that needs doing. We've looked through the inspection report in its entirety, and in particular what they call out quite often is concerns around the on-call workforce and how sort of well established or not they are, and in terms of their ability to meet their response times and serve our kind of more rural communities well. So the additional money that we've sought is particularly to focus around supporting that on-call workforce and ensuring that we can do more to really target our recruitment and retention activity, to look at how we can do that differently in order to kind of improve the response and the availability of that workforce in particular. So happy to provide more information at a later time, but that's really where the extra funding is for, particularly focused on that on-call workforce. It's far easier to manage workforce planning for our whole-time workforce and for our support staff, but it's the on-call that are particularly difficult to do. So that's where we want to focus the extra resource.
And Molly, Rob mentioned obviously organisational redesign and restructure, and when we talk about that, it isn't necessarily just about people. It is about how we approach things and do things differently. So is there an element of that workforce planning where we actually look at our approach and where we do things and where resource planning and resources may be?
Yeah, so how we have started that work is we're really focusing on critical roles and critical skills. So all of the directorates, following on from the OD piece of work, have now undertaken a critical roles map exercise. So that will now form, that's now being shared centrally and managed by my resource management team. The next step is to look at what succession plans do we have in place for maintaining those critical skills within the workforce. And if we know that we have gaps where we have sort of very critical skills, niche roles, and we don't have a good succession plan in place, that's where we will look to support and invest in our sort of learning and development of those roles, where we'll consider talent management strategies, and then other areas where we know we are well resourced and we believe that we can attract those roles well. That's where we will make different decisions about how we, continue to look at those roles. All of that will help us feed into the kind of future decisions that we will need to make as the funding challenges continue. But at the moment, what we're really focused on is better understanding where are the critical skills that we will need for the workforce of the future in order to deliver our safety plan over the next 4 years, as there is left of this one. So, yeah.
Chairman, if I may, it does sound then as though the £200,000 is a bit of a guesstimate, given the amount of work that needs to be done in order to fully understand the cost implications.
Yeah, that's fine. the £195,000 that we've asked for is to have the resource in order to lead the work around the on-call. So we're looking at the resources within my directorate currently and working at how best to utilise that in order to make sure that we can support that work well and build initiatives that will be lasting for the future. My intention is not to come back and ask for more money and not to create a kind of ongoing requirement for that work. I know that's something that we've seen before, but that's not my intention.
David.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a couple of simple ones, really. Borrowing was mentioned, and I just wanted to make sure that we got the best deal. And did we usually use the Public Works Loan Board for that, for borrowing wherever we can? And on paragraph 13, this is about presentation, really. We use millions, except it gets a bit odd when on F, transport cost is 0.020 million, which is £20,000. So I just wondered, is there a requirement? I mean, clearly in a spreadsheet you have to use the numbers with the decimal point relevant, but would it not be better to say £20,000 or £166,000 or whatever, or are we required to do it like that?
Rob, technical for you.
So for the purposes of this report, I can present those numbers in whatever format makes them easiest for you all to use the report. So yes, so very happy to change that one in future. The borrowing cost question is a good one. So we have Treasury advisors, Arlen Close, who help us with everything to do with our Treasury strategy. So that's preparing the strategy in the first place and then implementing that strategy as well. The strategy sets out a number of different sources that we can use for borrowing. Up to this point, we have always used the PWLB, so the Public Works Loan Board. You can borrow from other local authorities, or you could borrow from sort of private markets in different banks, etc. In that sort of way. But our working assumption is that we would borrow longer term from the PWLB as and when we need to. And that's what we've done so far. Great. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, well, if I can draw your attention to the recommendations on page 11, which are, firstly, that the forecast outturn position for financial year 25-26 be noted by the full authority. Noted. Secondly, that the update on the delivery of the request savings be noted by the full authority. Thirdly, that the need to invest one-off resources to support workforce planning in response to the cause for concern raised by HMI be noted by the authority. Next, that transfers from the capital financing budget, 1.3 million, and the interest income budget, 0.3 million, to the capital payments reserve are approved by the full authority to be set aside to support the authority's future management of fire contamination risks outlined in the August 25 report to the authority. Approved? Approved. Thank you. That the updated capital programme, appendices A1 and A2, including the relocation of funding across schemes, be approved by the full authority. And lastly, that the quarterly prudential indicators and Treasury indicators in tables 5 and 6 and Appendix B be noted by the full authority. Good, thank you. Moving on, thank you, Rob. Moving on to, sorry, Chief?
Nope.
Moving on to item 8, which is exclusion of press and public. To resolve that the public be excluded from the meeting during the following items of business, as it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that if members of the public were present during these items, there would be disclosure to them of exempt information within para 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 72. And further, that in all the circumstances of the cases, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information for reasons set out in the report. Members, do you approve this? Yes. Okay. So, Sparks, shut us down.